Hey everyone, my name is Tyler. I'm a filmmaker based out of Charleston, South Carolina. And if you're new here, thank you for dropping by and consider subscribing if you find this video helpful. And if you're returning, then thanks for coming back by. Now in this video, I want to do a lighting breakdown from a recent shoot that when I had the Ursa Cine 17K for a week. And wanted to talk about this shoot in particular because it was a really challenging shoot to light. We had an entire restaurant to light up, and we took down a lot of exposure because kind of battling windows and trying to make it look like the right time of day for the shoot. So that presented a lot of challenges, and I wanted to walk you through that and walk you through how we lit everything and the decisions that were made. I had an awesome team with me. I had Sean Tillman and Tyler Vincent, and those guys are awesome. And also Dorian Andrade, he was on BTS and was just super helpful on set. So I want to definitely give a shout out to the team. It wasn't just me lighting this by any means, and a lot of great input, and kind of wanted to walk you through this whole process. So if that interests you, then I assume it does if you're still here. So let's go ahead and dive into it. This could be a long video. I don't really have a script. My script is like just to remember to talk about the lights that I used. So this is going to be a pretty unscripted video. I don't know how long this video is going to be, but I'll try to leave chapter markers or something to maybe help you out. But anyways, let's go ahead and start off with the key light. The key light was an Aperture Storm 1200X. This is by far my favorite light in my kit right now. It's a super accurate light, really high SSI scores, meaning it just reproduces colors and skin tones really well. And that was set to 3200 Kelvin. And in fact, all of the lights were set to 3200 Kelvin for that matter. Now to diffuse the 1200X, I used an Ellen Chrome 175 centimeter softbox. It's a really big softbox. It gives just really nice soft light, and it's double diffused. So use that, and then I put a 4x silk in front of it, only really just in front of that chair right there, and that was really just to knock down some of the exposure on that chair on the right hand side of the frame, kind of closest to the frame, just because the light was right there and it was just really making that chair really hot. So just use that silk to knock down the exposure on that chair without knocking the exposure down on the rest of the table. And talent placement was deliberate as well. The darker skin tones obviously wanted to have closer to the light source because the darker skin tones absorb more light, and the lighter skin tones obviously reflect more light. So to help kind of balance that exposure a little bit as best as possible, that's why I placed the talent where they are. And then the last thing we did with that light is we just put a net to kind of knock down the exposure where that background talent is on the far right hand side of the screen. Now the 1200X was set to 100%, and the reason being is because we put quite a bit of ND in front of the lenses. We were using the Ursa Cine 17K here with the DZO RL lenses, and I can't remember exactly how much ND we ended up using, but we knocked down the exposure quite a bit, and you can see this shot right here where, you know, when we were just kind of setting up the lighting and making final tweaks, how dark the scene was without any light. And we did that so that those windows and everything were controlled in the background and made it look much darker than it actually was in real life. We wanted to make it look like it was, you know, late afternoon, you know, summertime, early summertime dinner, you know, around like 7 o'clock or something, as opposed to like 1 o'clock when we actually filmed this. So that's why we had to have the 1200X at 100% to give us enough exposure on the main talent. Problem is the rest of the restaurant, the rest of the space was very dark. So what we had to do is do quite a bit of exposure lift. So in order to do that, we utilized 2 lights for that. On the left-hand side of the screen, we used an Aperture Infinimat 4x4, and we just used the bare matte to have as much exposure, and we just blasted that right into the ceiling, back and away from the talent, so that they didn't get any spill on them. And that just helped kind of light up the left side of the frame and actually gave that little tree nice little texture and visual interest. And then on the right hand side of the screen, we used an Aperture 600C Pro 2, used a f10 Fresnel and blasted that in the ceiling. And that was, again, just hitting into the ceiling just to give us some exposure lift. There are a few more lights that I used on the shoot, but before we get into those, I do want to thank the sponsor of today's video, and that is Motion Array. All the music that I've been using for this video and the graphics and the text and everything all came from Motion Array. If you're not familiar with Motion Array, they're an all-in-one platform for all of your digital creative assets needs. And so all the little things that I've been using in this video all came from Motion Array. And they have assets for Final Cut Pro, Premiere Pro, and DaVinci Resolve, which is really important because I edit in DaVinci Resolve, not to mention music and sound effects and all that other good stuff. Motion Array has been a great resource for me for digital assets and stuff because I'm not a motion graphics person, and so when I need something, I'll just go to Motion Array and they most likely have it, and all I have to do is just download it, install it, and then I can go and use it, and it takes way less time to do that than for me to figure out how to do something in Fusion. So if you are interested in Motion Array, definitely check out the link in the description below. So thank you, Motion Array, for sponsoring this video. Now let's jump into the next set of lights that really kind of just starts to bring life to the room and starts adding like texture and all that stuff. And like, for me, honestly, it's like these are the lights that I think that are the most fun to start incorporating, because that's when you start, in my opinion, to start bringing the realism to the shot and painting the scene with light instead of just kind of, you know, using the key light or whatever. So the first light we'll talk about will be on the right hand side of the screen, and that is in the wine cellar. I used a Amaran 300C, and we just had that up on a C-stand and pointed down just kind of through the glass door. And that was just to kind of add some contrast and some light and some texture into that wine cellar. It's a really, really cool wine cellar in there, a lot of visual interest, and I wanted to make sure that that didn't get lost in the lack of exposure in there. So we put the 300C there, and with that light, it just looks natural, and that's the goal with lighting. So that's that light. The next light is on the opposite side of the screen, throwing light towards the right side of the screen, and that is an Amaran 200 XS. And what I did there was to just, I just wanted to add some light in the background, especially on that row of plants in the background, and also gave a little bit of exposure to the background talent back there, just so that they didn't get lost in all the busyness and the plants and all that. And it really helped out because one of the talents, you can see, had a darker shirt on, and that light just really helped add exposure to, especially to the skin tones. So it kind of helped them pop a little bit. And honestly, to me, it looks natural, and to my eyes, it looked like it could be either motivated by the practicals in the restaurant, especially like right over them, or even like some sunlight creeping in through, you know, window, like a sunset or something like that. And to me, I feel like that light just adds just enough texture to the background of those plants and everything to just give a little bit of visual interest, but also everything, I feel like it just adds more depth, and everything in the scene starts to just look more natural. And that was the goal, is just to not make this look super lit. We definitely could have done a better job, but you know, we had a pretty limited time in the restaurant because, you know, we had to film this before the restaurant actually opened. So I'm really happy with how this all turned out. And then the very last light that we brought in was a Nova P300C, and we just put that in the very back corner. There's a little room that goes off to the right, and we just put that in there just to give a little bit exposure lift to that room back there. That way it just added, again, it was like a subtle touch, but again, it's looked a little bit more natural. So those are the lights that we brought in, and then we obviously, you can see all the practicals in there. It's a beautiful restaurant, and the lighting that they had, the fixtures and everything were really pretty. So we definitely wanted to have those on. So practicals, there's a little like LED ring above the bar and all that. So I thought those looked really nice, and we were able to dim those down to where they weren't distracting or overexposed or anything like that. Now the very last thing that we did is we just put a giant Duvetine cloth behind the camera, and just because there was a big window behind us and we didn't want to have that light influence the scene at all, since pretty much all the lights were set to 3200 Kelvin. So we wanted to make sure that no daylight was coming in to mix with the light or mess with the exposure or anything like that. So that's pretty much it. So right before the talent and everything showed up, we did a quick little run through of all the lights just to see how they all impacted the scene. And it's another good way to just double check and see if anything catches our eye before we start rolling. And wanted to roll through this just to show you how all the lights affected the scene. And you'll notice one thing that we noticed is the 600C Pro 2 on the right hand side of the screen is the exposure lift that I mentioned. We actually saw that you could see the light like on the ceiling, and that was actually pretty helpful, just turning it on and off. And looking at it on the bigger monitor, we actually noticed that we could see that light in the frame. And obviously didn't want that, so we did make a minor adjustment to make sure that it wasn't inside of the frame. So we'll roll through that. You can see how all of the lights worked in the scene together. And that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching and dropping by. If you found this useful or helpful, or you just like the vibe of this channel, then maybe consider subscribing. If you are already subscribed, then thank you so much. Make sure to hit that bell notification if YouTube decides to work with that still. I don't know if it still works or not, but be cool. And give this video a thumbs up, share it, all that kind of good stuff. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the comments. Peace.